Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. It is Friday. It is Friday at about 4:20. I am going live just a couple of minutes early here and decided to go live a few minutes ago after I was doing some research, and I'm always on this journey of trying to improve what it is that I offer here on YouTube and across the comic book community as a whole. And I was watching this educational video on how to stream, how to become a streamer full time. Not that that is my path, but I'm always like trying to pick up these tidbits, right, from people that are more knowledgeable than I, that have a bigger audience than I. I'm always trying to learn from them. And they cited this example of a young lady that is a full-time streamer, and what she streams is her having breakfast. And I was so inspired by the consumption of breakfast that I was like, man, I feel like I should go live now because I have more to offer than that. I am joking, but I'm also being truthful and honest about what I was doing. And yes, there is a woman that streams herself eating breakfast, and I'm guessing that there's more to it. But literally, they showed a photo of her in her room with a bowl in front of her as she was consuming it. So maybe there's more to it than that. But yeah, so it is Friday. And I want to welcome you guys to another one of my live streams. We're just going to hang out just a little bit and have a conversation about whatever it is that may be top of mind for you guys. And I have a couple of things that are written down on a note card in front of me, and I like to use these little note cards. I use those now for show prep where I jot down ideas. But we are going to freestyle this one. We're going to freestyle, and we're going to talk about whatever it is that comes up over the course of the time that we have together. So if you have things that you want to talk about, throw them up in all caps, which will help me to actually be able to see them, and we'll kind of dig in this thing. But before we get started, I want to say hello to some comic book soldiers that have joined me here on Instagram. I'm sorry, on YouTube. I'll also say I'm actually streaming right now on Facebook as well, and just dropped a little video clip on the YouTube, on the Instagram machine. So I'm like everywhere all at the same time right now. So I want to say hello to Mighty Comics and Collectibles. How you doing? Myth Lab Music is in the house. How you doing, brother? Tina is in the house. Tina, is always good to see you. Rush Die Hard, my Canadian brother. How you doing? Sully Two Kings is here. Tommy Mayo, how you doing, brother? What did he say? Are we watching you? Oh man, well done, sir. Well done. Omega Comics is in the house. Jason is here. Lima is here. JT is in the house. I saw Jason. There he is. Jason right there. Beatbox freestyle. No, we don't do that. No. This mic is not set up for beatboxing, bro. I need a better screen here to prevent the pops. Chandler, this is the first time that I've seen your name, Chandler. Welcome to the live stream, my friend. And drop 1G. Drop 1G. 1G. Well, drop that. Backseat driver's in the house. How you doing, brother? It's good to see you. David is in here. Scrolling down through the names. Scott is also in here. It's good to see you. Anna, how you doing? It's good to see you, my friend. Almighty Liger King is also in the house. Just experimenting on a burger made with an air fryer. What? Bro, you know I like my burger. There are two things that I really enjoy. There actually is more than that, but when it comes to food, there's two things that I really enjoy: sushi and burgers. We also have an air fryer, and we tend to cook. My wife does really good green beans in the air fryer. My daughter and I, who is 3, we normally sit across the table from one another, and we go at it. We go head to head on who can consume the most green beans. Now, if you are telling me that there's a way to make a burger in the air fryer, I may have to try that. I am intrigued now. Chandler is in the house. Emerald Knight is here. Simon is here. How you doing, brother? It's good to see you. EE is in the house. He said it made pot stickers last night with the air fryer. The air fryer is probably the best invention that has come about for like foods in the last couple of years. I'm gonna be honest with you. The air fryer is dope. It is dope. Emerald Knight beat me to it. All right, so I want to welcome you guys, and thank you for agreeing to spend a little bit of your Friday night with me. I was on a little bit of a roll yesterday. I released 3 videos in one day, and it's been a long time since I've released 3 videos. I actually went live twice yesterday and released 1 pre-recorded video. It was a good day. It was a good day. I was on fire, clearly. I talked a little bit about, in the first live stream, CBCS. I broke some news, if you will, right? That CBCS is going to be doing a massive signing with some incredibly talented creators out there, including Frank Miller. And a lot of people have reached out to me over the last, few hours or so, and have been asking some questions, because what I essentially cited for them was an email that I received from CBCS. And in this email, they kind of outline all the details of all the creators, all the fees that are associated with it, et cetera, et cetera. And people went over to the CBCS website and did not see details there, right? So one thing that I will tell you is that it's much easier for companies right now, it's much easier for companies, period, to send out mass emails than to update a website. And so you have to remember that if things are shut down, which they are now, it might be difficult for them to get in touch with the developer who can actually make the changes to the website. I don't know what their setup is, but if you go to the CBCS website, you will not find any information about what it is that I spoke about yesterday. But rest assured that if you follow the directions, if you look at that email, the details are there. And my assumption is that they are still doing it because they literally just released the email yesterday, right? My assumption is that it's a little bit more difficult for them to make changes to the website versus sending emails. So if you have any doubts about that, I would definitely encourage you guys to reach out to CBCS directly. I sent them an email yesterday evening with some follow-up questions from you guys, and I have not yet heard back from them. But again, they're probably skeleton crew kind of stuff. And so that's maybe why they have not been responsive. I have messaged them in the past, and they've been very responsive to me. So my assumption is that they are moving forward. Now, with all of that said, I did get an email at 6:52 this morning from, let me make sure I can say the name, from William. William sent me a message, and he sent it at 6:52 this morning. It was basically a forward of a message that he exchanged with CBCS, and it answers some questions that I want to pass on to you guys. And again, I want to thank William for sending this over to me. Before I go on, I want to acknowledge this super chat that's been dropped in here before it gets away from me. So, Shortbox Comics, my man Simon, over in the UK, just dropped a super chat here, $4.99 in pounds. Pound to you, my friend. Thank you very much. Simon just dropped a really cool video a short while ago. He actually took a look at the fantastic a Spider-Man cartoon from the 90s in a video. It's actually a pretty creative video. So if you guys get a chance, check them out. Shortbox Sharks on the YouTube machine. Simon, if you get a chance, drop your YouTube channel name in the window here. I believe that it's Shortbox Sharks, but I want to make sure. Shout out to him over in the UK. These guys are doing a couple of good things, right? Shortbox and also Hydra Collectibles, just doing some really cool stuff over there in the UK. So here is the exchange with William. He sent this over, and he basically says that he reached out to CBCS because he has a CGC yellow label book that he wants to send into them, and wanted to make sure that if he sent it in and had this book cracked, that CBCS would recognize the signatures that are currently on that book. And he learned something pretty interesting. He says, I wanted to submit my CGC 9.8 signature series Spawn 300 1 in 50 Virgin variant, signed by Todd McFarlane, and he wanted to have it signed by Snyder and Greg Capullo. And he also wanted to send in his CGC Signature Series 9.4 Wolverine 1, signed by Chris Claremont, for Frank Miller to sign. So he had 2 books he wanted to send in, 1 Spawn, 1 Wolverine, and he wanted to make sure that they would recognize those signatures. And he says here that apparently it depends on when the CGC witnessed the signature happen, when that happened, when that whole process went down of it being recognized. And he says, if the signature date on the CGC label was before 2019, it will transfer to CBCS and will maintain the yellow label, if you will, right? Or the equivalent of the yellow label. But if the CGC signature date is 2019 or after, they will not transfer it over. And so I think that this is a really important thing, that if you have a book that is already signed by CGC, has a yellow label, you want to send it in to CBCS to take advantage of this massive signing event that they're doing. If the book is 2019 or after, they will not recognize it. So you will have to do like signature verification with CBCS, which is an additional charge to recognize that signature. If it was before 2019, they will recognize it. The reason for this, at least I think, based upon what I remember, is that at one point, CGC started to do some things where they allowed, like for J. Scott Campbell, people to get books signed by him to be placed in a sealed bag and then brought back to the CGC booth. And those books were not witnessed. Normally with a CGC yellow label, that book is witnessed. Literally, there is a person that stands there with you and the creator as that book is signed. They basically take possession of that book and they walk it back to the booth. In the case of J. Scott Campbell and maybe some others, because of some crazy stuff that was happening, people were given bags. And so they took the book, they took the bag to J. Scott Campbell, they got it signed or whatever, they placed it in there, it was sealed, then they brought it back. That is, I think, when CBCS basically made the decision that they were not going to recognize the signatures from CGC because of that. And again, I'm doing a lot of this off of memory. Some of you may know a little bit more than what I know, but I'm kind of conveying to you what I remember. And this is part of the reason why when William reached out about his yellow label, they drew that line in the sand of 2019. There's a reason for it, and it's because of a little bit of a policy change that CBCS put in place. Why they did it, I kind of explained, but the motivation behind it, I don't know, right? So I also sent them, like I said, an email trying to ask a couple of clarifying questions of them. I have not received a response back, but I believe it's because they're operating with a skeleton crew. Again, my assumption is that the signing event that they just announced yesterday is still moving forward, despite the fact that there was no announcement on the website. Again, if it's easier to send an email than to get a website updated, dependent upon how your organization is set up. So if you have doubts, if you have questions, issues, comments, concerns, I definitely encourage you guys to reach out to CBCS directly to ask them some questions about this, with the hope that they'll get back to you in a timely fashion. And I believe the deadline for this thing wasn't even until like April 24th or something like that. So you guys have plenty of time. If none of this sounds familiar, you definitely want to go back and watch the video that I released yesterday. One of the 3 videos that I released yesterday, because in that video, I think it was CBCS major announcement. There's a lot of detail in there for you on who is signing, how much they're charging, how to submit your books, what happens if you don't submit them the right way. There's a ton of detail there. All right. So let me swing back to the let me swing back to the comment section here to see what you guys may be talking about real quick. And again, if there are some things that you guys want to talk about, throw it up in all caps. That will allow me to see it a little bit better. Glitter and duct tape. I had a chance to meet them several months ago at a con. Shout out to you. I don't see your name in here yet. Oh, hey, there you are. Glitter and duct tape. It is definitely good to see you. If there's things that you guys want to talk about, throw it up in all caps. It'll actually help me, like I said, to see it a little bit better. Scrolling down through actually I'm scrolling up, but same difference. There's a couple of doubles, couple of doubles, other hand. Couple of double. Oh, there we go. A couple of doubles. I actually have a double. I actually have a triple of this one. But the other 2 are actually raw. I don't know if you can see on the desk behind me. I'm actually cleaning and pressing a couple of books as we speak. I'm actually cleaning and pressing the other two copies of this particular book right there. I may actually send it in to CGC at some point, and I'll get to CGC in just a moment. Let me scroll down through the comments here, seeing what else you guys are talking about. Does CGC honor CBCS? No, I do not believe so. I do not believe so. The way that CGC works, CGC only allows yellow labels for books that they witness signing. They have, that is their policy, that they have to have an authorized witness see that book signed in order to get a yellow label. And part of the reason why I believe that they do that is that it's a risk mitigation strategy. There are some other companies out there that have not just in this industry, just in general, that have gotten themselves in trouble because of counterfeit signatures. And I think CGC is basically like, you know what, we are not going to fall prey to the mistakes of others. We are not going to be authorizing signatures. We're not going to be verifying signatures. We are going to witness them and thus certify them through witnessing. Whereas with CBCS, they will either witness the signature or they will verify the signature, which is one of the major differentiators between the two companies, right? In my opinion, there's a couple of others, but that's one of the major, is that with CBCS, they will actually look at something that has been signed. They will, I guess, do some kind of comparisons to verify signatures, to validate the signature that they are looking at on the item in front of them, and it will get a certain label. And then they will also witness signatures as well. So that is one of the big differences between CBCS and CGC, is the ability to have it be verified on one side, and on the other, it has to be witnessed. But yeah, I again, the motivations behind it, is there more to it? The reason why they stopped based upon 2019 could be a competitive thing. I don't know. I don't want to speculate on that one. So scrolling down through some of the comments here. There's a lot of rules. Yeah, I mean, here's one of the great things though. Here's one of the great things, and I think you would probably agree with this. You don't have to get anything signed, or I'm not sorry. I mean, you don't have to get anything graded, right? Grading comics is not for everybody, and that's perfectly fine, right? I mean, I think that comics have existed independent of third-party grading companies for decades. And comics will continue to survive for decades without third-party grading. You know what I'm saying? So this is not something that you have to do, right? And actually, I was looking at a video because I was working on cleaning up some of my playlist. I had a video that I recorded probably 2.5 years ago on 6 reasons why you should get your comics slabbed. And it was actually a fun video that basically talks about the fact that it's a personal choice. It's a personal choice. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Because a lot of this stuff is confusing, right? And you have to want to understand it in order to get into it, but it's a completely optional thing. And that's one of the great things about this hobby, is that there's no right way. There's your way. And if that's your way and it works for you, then it works. So let me scroll down through the comments here, seeing what else you guys are talking about. Scrolling down through the comments. But yeah, there's a comment here. It's a good one. This is a good one. So I was actually I think the person that introduced EGS to the comic book community. And this is one person that says, I'm done with CGC. Had to wait over 6 months for 4 books to be cleaned, pressed, and graded. My LCS has partnered with EGS and CBCS. Super happy with Tony's work. Excellent. That is good stuff. At the end of the day, if it works for you, then it absolutely works. And it sounds like it works for you. So shout out to you, brother. Shout out to EGS and Tony for doing some good stuff. All right, so let's get into this one. JT just asked the $1 million question, and we are going to get into it right now because a lot of people were very concerned about what was going to happen with CGC. This is an announcement that they put out the other day. Like, I went live to talk about CBCS, and as soon as my camera clicked off, this email came out basically saying that CGC remains open and fully operational. In fact, I have watched this week alone, I want to say 3 CGC unboxings, where people have actually received books this week and actually opened those books up. So CGC remains open and fully operational. Operating out of Sarasota, Florida. And I guess they do have this one office in London that is now opening. So CGC meets a number of criteria for essential services, according to Florida. Wow. Wow. CGC is essential. How about that? Executive Order number 20-91 issued on April 1 by the governor of Florida. Wow. Essential services to include many other businesses that interact with customers electronically or by telephone, et cetera, et cetera. Let me scroll down and find something that's interesting. All customer drop-offs and pickups at its Sarasota headquarters, including the recently implemented contactless curbside pickup and drop-off, have been suspended. Any additional employees who have been identified as being able to do a substantial portion of their work from home will be required to do so. But it sounds like they are continuing to operate. CGC customer service representatives are working from home and remain available to help. The fastest way to reach CGC customer service is through the email service@cgccomics.com. So I guess they are still open and still operational. What we don't know, wait a minute, let me see. It doesn't say. I'm guessing, wait a minute, in addition to the enhanced cleaning and safety protocols previously instituted, including frequent cleaning of all work areas, CGC has taken the following steps. Okay. All right. So I don't know whether there have been any delays officially. I have not seen anything that has come out from them that basically says that they expect there to be delays. But it sounds like from the tone of this email in big, bold red letters, which I'm a huge fan of, they are open and operational. And as I just mentioned, there are people that are actively getting their books from CGC as of this week. So JP, how you doing, brother? It is good to see you. Simon says, I had to pick up, let me take this off the screen. I had to pick up that Wolverine Virgin Sketch variant #1 after that last video. Yeah, so if you guys haven't seen this, I dropped a video. I dropped, 3 videos yesterday. One of them was me unboxing some really cool books that I picked up from IG Comic Store. You guys know this. I'm a huge fan of IG Comic Store. Brent and his team are fantastic. I've gotten to know them pretty well over the last couple of years. And so I picked up some really cool books from them and unboxed them. One of them was this really cool Wolverine Virgin. Yeah, so man, that was a cool box. That was a cool box of some really, really awesome stuff. So if you guys haven't seen this one, I definitely want to encourage you to check it out. Let me restate. Do not check this video out if you don't want to spend a couple of bucks, because if you watch this video, you might be enticed to spend a couple of dollars. I think there are at least 4 people that were like, yeah, so I went and bought that book. So if you have a couple of bucks burning a hole in your pocket, go check out that video. Let me scroll through the comments here. I think I just saw one in here from Lee. There's like 1,000 comments that blew by. What is this? Just to be clear, I'm not saying anyone is wrong about yellow labels, simply adding that mine were all unwitnessed red labels. I think that was probably directed at someone else. I had not seen a previous comment. So I'm guessing that was between a couple of people here in the room. So scrolling down through the comments here, seeing what else is in here. Scrolling down through the comments, love yellow labels on a lot of books. The protection of the book and the authentication of signature are worth the cost. Grades are secondary. Scrolling down through the comments here, seeing what else you guys are talking about. What is this? I was looking forward to submitting a couple of books to CBCS at a local con a few weeks ago. Of course, that didn't happen. I was going to send my first Batwoman signed by Mark Wade. Well, I mean, I think you can still send them in, right? I think you can still send them in. I don't know what the rules are. I know that CBCS, I was on their website yesterday. It looks like they have 5 different types of memberships, and one of them is free. And I'm assuming that you can, with free, their version of free, you can still mail books in. I know normally with CGC, if you have the free membership, they only have like 3 tiers that you cannot mail it in, but they made that exception because of what's happening with COVID-19. So if you have CGC free membership, you can mail in for a certain period of time. With CBCS, because I'm less familiar with them and their services, I don't know whether you can mail it in if you have a free, but I'm assuming so. So yeah, I think it's definitely unfortunate that you were unable to hand deliver your books to them at a con. But you know, this is the environment that we're operating in right now, you know. But if you do Goosefang, decide to mail your books in, there's a couple of videos here on the channel where I actually show you different techniques for being able to mail your books in, regardless of who you're mailing them to. And on that note, I actually received a message, and I had a back and forth with someone on Instagram earlier today that was asking questions about the various tiers of books over at CGC. And they were asking a question as to whether they could put multiple tiers in the same shipment. And what I mean by that is that with CGC, they have a couple of different tiers that are structured around the age of the book, the value of the book, that kind of stuff. And so if you have like a modern book, for example, that has a different price point, different turnaround time than a Silver Age book or a Golden Age book, of course, right? And so what I'd like to do is I like to put like kind books on the same invoice. So if I have a bunch of moderns, they all go on one invoice. I think an invoice holds, I don't know, 23, maybe. I could be wrong about that. If I have books that I'm sending in that might be the economy tier or the value tier, I will send those on a specific invoice, right? So like kind books get put on the same invoice. But you can have multiple invoices in the same box. So you can have 5 moderns and 5 Silver Age, and you can have separate invoices. So 2 invoices, but you can put both of those together in one box and mail it in. And that is the way that I like to do it. And I think that it works perfectly fine because each one of those invoices will be on a different timetable. So modern books get processed much faster because they don't require as much scrutiny as older books. And so by separating them on the 2 invoices, it allows for more efficient shipping out and more efficient shipping back. Because let's say that you send in 5 different books on, and I'm making this up, 5 different tiers, you will get 5 different shipments, which means that you will pay for shipping 5 times. So you want to send like kind books on the same invoice, as many as you can afford. That way your per book shipping cost actually comes down, right? So if it's $1, you send in 4 books, your shipping is 25 cents per book versus sending 1 book, and now your shipping is $1, right? So it's just a way to kind of spread the cost around just a little bit. All right. So what is EGS? Search Regie Collects EGS. EGS is another third-party grading service that is based out of Florida. And the owner of EGS is a guy by the name of Tony. Tony's a solid dude. He actually is on Instagram, I believe, at EGS Comics. Let me search for it real quick. Yeah, EGS Comics, which stands for Expert Grading Services. And he is a third-party grader that is trying to compete with maybe not CGC, because CGC is pretty big, right? But he's trying to compete in the third-party grading space. But he is trying to offer something else, something additional, something that the others aren't necessarily offering. And so what he actually does is these really fantastic colored labels. And hopefully you guys will be able to see that. He is actually offering these really cool colored labels. Let me get rid of that. These colored labels. So you can actually get a label that is kind of sort of color coded to the color of the book that you're actually sending in, which is kind of cool. It's kind of a cool thing that he's actually doing. He offers slabbed grading as well as raw comic book grading. So in other words, he will either put your book in a slab, a EGS slab, or he will put it in a really nice Mylar and it'll be sealed with a EGS logo, right? So you can do raw for those people that want the option of being able to open up their books, but still like to have them graded. That raw book grading is a pretty good option. So if you check him out, he is online, he is on Instagram, check him out. But you can also check out the video in which he, which I kind of sort of introduced him to the comic book community here on the YouTube machine. So scrolling down through the comments here, here's a question: Werewolf by lunchtime. Is that like a 5 o'clock shadow? Would I crack a 7.0 CBCS and then press and see if you can get an 8.0? It depends. It depends on a couple of things. First, you would have to look at that CBCS book through the plastic to determine if you can actually identify pressable defects. That's like the first thing. Look to see whether you can spot pressable defects through the plastic. If you see that, then you have to ask yourself if those pressable defects can be removed. If those pressable defects can be removed, then you can kind of sort of make the assumption that you can get a half grade to a full grade bump on that book. Then you have to look at the dollars and cents of sending a book in to CGC, having it cleaned, pressed, and regraded and shipped. What is the cost of that versus the value of that book at an 8.0, for example? If the cost is less than the value, then it's a no, right? If the cost is if the cost is less than the value, then it's a maybe. And I say a maybe because you have to really know that the defects that you see are indeed pressable. You also have to reconcile in your mind that grading is science, but it's also an art, right? What happens if that book that you send in actually comes back at a 7.0 CGC or a 6.5 CGC? Because it can happen, right? If you do that calculus and that math in your head and determine that it's worth it, then you pull the trigger, you crack it, you send it in, you do it, right? But you have to ask yourself, you have to do some real math, and you have to ask yourself some challenging questions about, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Sometimes, I'm going to be honest with you, a 7.0 is good enough. I'm going to just be honest with you. I have a couple of books back there on that wall that I could crack, send in, clean, press, that kind of stuff. You know what? I own it. It's good enough. You know what I'm saying? So ask yourself that. The other thing is, I don't even know what book it is. I don't know the values of the book. So these are a couple of things that you should definitely think about. But these are the kind of questions, honestly, these are the kind of questions that I think we all deal with. Right? These are all the questions that we think about. So I love that kind of question. And if you guys want to talk more about it, Werewolf by lunchtime, 5 o'clock shadow, reach out to me on Instagram and we can chat about it. I want to scroll back. I want to scroll down first. No, where's that super chat? There we go. My man, Rod, Jester Rican in his comics just dropped a cool super chat, $5. My man is that a cane and a fedora? My man Rod, I hope you're doing well, man. I hope the family is good down there in Florida. If you guys don't know about Rod, definitely want to encourage you to check him out here on the YouTube machine. Good guy, does a lot of videos, an awesome member of the comic book community. So check him out. What is this? Super honorable nephew, Patreon member. He says, Reg, would you buy a key book that's not CGC just to own it? I would, but to each his own. Would I buy a key book that's not? Yeah. It also depends on the book and what we're talking about, right? The most recent book that I actually picked up that was not CGC was X-Men #4, First Appearance of Omega Red. There was a CGC version of it on the eBay machine, and there was a CBCS version of it, and the CBCS version was like $30 cheaper. You better believe that I jumped on that CBCS because it was a 9.8, the same as the CGC, and it was cheaper. It was a done deal. No brainer for me to actually pull the trigger on that one. So, the thing about me is that I like CGC, but it is a personal preference to me. There are a lot of people that say that CGC books actually command more value than CBCS. I personally don't, despite the example that I just cited, which is anecdotal. I don't know definitively that is true. I don't know definitively that CBCS books are worth less than CGC books. I will say that my observation of the market is that there are a lot more CGC books for sale, but I've never done the analysis to determine if, in fact, a CGC book is worth more than a CBCS book. And maybe somebody should do that. Maybe I should. I don't know. But I don't know definitively. I know anecdotally, people will say that, But as I've spoken about before, if you watch my video, the best grading company, I think it was the best grading company, I released it probably about 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Anecdotal evidence is not evidence. I like facts, and facts require somebody to actually do some analyses to determine definitively what is what. I don't know enough, but yeah, would I buy a non-CGC book to own it? Yes, I will. Yes, I will. Scrolling down through some of the comments here, the problem is when it jumps like crazy, and I lose a lot. CGC clean and press books. If I send one book in, I think I understand that, and I believe that the answer is yes. CGC will clean and press anything that you actually send in. It doesn't matter how few or how many you send in. Rest assured that it will take some time. I believe that the turnaround time for most cleaning and pressing is at least 30 days, and that's business days. And then after that happens, then you have, whatever the turnaround time is for grading, which is, again, all business days. And so a lot of people say, it took forever for me to get my book back. Well, you have to recognize that they're only open during business days. So if there's holidays, if there's weekends, nothing's getting done because, they operate on business days. And so if you have a clean, a press, a grade, a ship, and maybe even some other services built into there, you have multiple books, it could be a while, because let's say I send 20 books on the same invoice. I want them all cleaned, pressed, graded. That's a lot of books to work its way through the process. When you think about the bolus of books that they have there, it takes some time. And that's why the best piece of advice I give people whenever they send books in, doesn't matter who it is, I say, send it and forget it. Difficult, I know, but it's better to send it and forget it than to drive yourself crazy. So I've actually done several videos on this particular topic right here. And I don't know that I've ever really successfully been able to answer this question the right way without making a lot of people mad. But to me, this saying of low grade is better than no grade lacks nuance. And our hobby is all about nuance, right? Our hobby is all about nuance. What is the exact number? Which cover is it? Is it a price variant? Is it not? What condition is it in? Is there a spine tick, right? Nuance matters in our hobby. And so when we say no grade is better than no grade, I disagree, because I think that sometimes low grade is a no-go zone, right? For me personally, someone sent me an image the other day and they said, Reggie, would you buy this book? Absolutely not. The book had mold on it and it had rust on the staples that had infiltrated the page. That is a low grade book, but I would not have that book in my collection. I would not. And I would say, and I basically did say this to this person, if you were to buy that book and you look at that book, would that book actually make you happy? And I think the person ultimately came to the conclusion that the answer was no, because they did not buy it. Right? I think that I have low grade books on my wall back there. I have some 3s and stuff back there on that wall. Those books, even though they are low grade, they still meet a standard that I have established for my collection that equates to my happiness. That when I look at it, it is not a high grade book, but it meets a certain standard that makes me happy. I don't do rust. I don't do incomplete books. I don't do books with massive tears. Now, tape doesn't necessarily bother me, right? I don't do restore books either, right? But tape on a book does not bother me. If someone has written their name or something like that on a book, that does not bother me. One of my replacement FF49s actually has, I think, like a rat nibble in the bottom of it. Does not bother me, right? But I think everyone has to have a standard. And at the end of the day, if you buy a book and you look at that book 3 months, 6 months, 9 months from now, the question becomes, will you be happy with that book? Right? So the blanket statement of no low grade is better than no grade lacks nuance. And I think that nuance is important. So you have to say to yourself, what is my standard? What is my no-go zone? Right? So that's my thoughts. Hopefully people appreciated that one, man. Hopefully I didn't butcher that one. And and get off track there. So scrolling down through some of the comments here. Nope, tape does not bother me. It does not bother me. No, I actually in the short box behind me that holds this light up is Amazing Spider-Man Annual #1, and it has tape on the spine. Does not bother me at all, because in order to get one without tape, it would break the bank. And I'm quite comfortable with the tape on the spine. Right? Does not bother me. The same way that when you start to deal with Golden Age books, you might have to get accustomed to the idea of color touch, right? Because a lot of Golden Age books back then, kids colored it in, or adults colored it in because they wanted to make the book look attractive, not because they were trying to go for a higher sale. So there are certain things where people have to make adjustments based upon budget, based upon the types of books that they want to go after, because and I think the more important thing is that everyone has a standard, or should at least give thought to what makes sense for them. And if it makes sense for them, then it actually works, right? So scrolling down through some of the comments here. No one needs molds in there. What I did not fully appreciate at the time at which I was giving the advice to this person was that it was actually a 16-year-old. I actually did not realize that it was a 16-year-old, but he told me that, and I was like, oh, now I understand why you're going after this book. But what was cool is that when he decided that he wasn't going to pull the trigger on the moldy book, right, that also had tape and rust infiltrating the paper, he came back the next day with a book that was slightly more expensive than the first book, but it actually looked better. It had tape, but no rust and no mold, right? And so my thing with that one was I would buy that. I know that you're 16. I know that a certain amount of money is a barrier, right? If you really want this book is a much better book than that book, and totally worth the extra money that you would have spent. Now, had he bought the book the day before, I think that he would have been unhappy. I really do believe that. I really do. Scrolling down through the comments here, I have some high grade restorations. Man, here we go. That is a standard that works for the Emerald Knight. And again, it's like people have to decide what they want, right? And if it works, never let anybody tell you that that is wrong. Never. You know what I'm saying? There was a comment here I've noticed. What I've noticed is that a CGC book sells for more than its counterpart. This is just the books I look for. There you go. And the thing is that to really do it the right way is that you would have to have a large sampling over a long period of time. You would have to look for both CGC and CBCS books at the same grade that were sold within tight proximity of one another. And again, a large sample, and really in order to do a real analysis, right? Because if I look at, for example, and I'm gonna make this up, like a really important Daredevil book, right? And the CGC book sold for a crazy amount of money, and then I look in the CBCS book actually sold for a lot less money. But if you don't look at the time parameters, if you don't look at the time in which those books were sold, then you can't fully appreciate the market conditions that would have affected the values of those two books. So by looking at them within tight proximity, you can assume that whatever market dynamics were taking place, that it was affecting both of those books at the same time, if that makes sense, right? There were other factors like where were those books bought, right? Because eBay might operate a little bit differently than a private sale. So you would have to look at a large sample. You would have to look at these books within tight proximity with one another, et cetera, right? So yeah. And again, sometimes it's like our observational or anecdotal evidence becomes our reality. But the truth is that sometimes it requires a little bit more. And I like what Silver Age Surfer said. He says, these were his observations. This is what he saw, right? Which I respect. I respect that. Reading this Tommy Mayo comment, $10 to put some Flash or Superman on that. I don't know if I think I have a Justice League book that was signed by Jim Lee. That's probably the best that I have in my collection. I might need to dig deep for one of these books. Tommy, thank you for the super chat, brother. I definitely appreciate that. Oh man. Here you go. My Almighty Liger King says, I at the first Mandarin with molds on it, but the book is complete. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. If you are happy with that purchase, then it doesn't matter. I mean, to me, this is no different than someone saying that I like Hanna-Barbera books, or I like Archie books, or I like Good Girl books, or I like horror, pre-co horror, right? If you like it and if it makes you happy, then it works, you know? And that's my big thing is I try to get people to ask themselves a couple of questions so that they don't get caught up in FOMO, the fear of missing out, that they are making informed decisions for themselves, not from a place of fear, right? Because I have a natural bias for action. So if something needs to happen, I'm going to get it done, right? If there's a book that I'm looking for, I will buy that book. But I want to make sure that when I have that bias for action, that I'm pulling the trigger on something that actually makes sense. And I'm not just doing it from the standpoint of, I got to get it done because it's on my list. You know what I'm saying? So scrolling down through some of the comments here, saying what else you guys are talking about. What is this? Antoine says, I think my tastes have changed. I bought some books 2 years ago that was totally fine. Now he has to upgrade. There you go. And that's also perfectly fine. That is also perfectly fine, right? No, foxing is not mold. No, this was true. This was true mold that was growing on a book, little black spots, right? So mold is, in my experience, little black spots, right? That kind of spread a little bit. Foxing is a browning of the page. I don't know what causes foxing. With molds, you might be able to remove mold. I honestly don't know. That's part of like my no-go zone, right? So I've never experienced it or experimented with it, if you will. So my assumption is that mold could be removed. If removed, is there damage underneath as a result of that? I don't know. But foxing and mold are not the same. Foxing is that paper is browned, it is tanned, and there's nothing you can do about that. So good question. Wait a minute. Do we have a new person in here? Cody? Where's Cody? Where's Cody? I don't see it. Cody. I'm scrolling through the names. There's a lot of people in here. So, Cody. Oh, here we go. Cody, new to the channel, man. So far, loving the content. Do I have an online store? So, Cody, first, I will say welcome to you. As someone else just welcomed you here. We generally have a good time hanging out with one another. So I want to welcome you to the channel. As you take a look around, if you have any questions, issues, comments, thoughts, concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I always invite people to reach out to me on Instagram. That's like the best way. And it's Regie Collects on Instagram. You can reach out to me there. And your question around, do I have a store? I do indeed. Regie Collects. RegieCollects.com is the store. You can check out some of the stuff that I have there. Scrolling down through the names, seeing what else you guys are talking about. Do I have Green Lantern 76 or 87? I don't know my Green Lantern as well as maybe I should. Green Lantern, what was the numbers? I think it was 87 was one of the ones you said. Let's see what that one is. No, I do not have that. That's the John Stewart. I have bought that book and I have given that book away, but I do not own the John Stewart. And then 76. Both of those are dope covers. I think I like the John Stewart cover more. But no, I don't own either one of those books. I don't even think I've read either one of them, to be honest with you. I went back and I read some old Green Lantern, like, showcase books. I think it's Showcase 22. I read some of that, multiple stories in that one, like the Green Lantern origin story with Hal Jordan. I enjoyed that. But a lot of the other stuff, the Green Lantern stuff, I have not read it. So scrolling down. Yep, there we go. Thank you. Thank you, backseat driver. Let me see. It's not a bad movie. I actually enjoyed the movie. I don't know about my favorite movie. I don't know about that, Chris Bigger, but it was not a bad movie. It was not a bad movie. My standard for movies is somewhat low. I'm gonna be honest with you. I watch B, C grade zombie vampire movies. So, what do I know? What do I know? Can I recommend any good indie comics? So if you search Regie Collects here on YouTube, Regie Collects Indies, there is a video that I set up where I actually had a call to action for people that read indie comics, asking them to actually identify good indie comics for people to check out. So you may want to check that out. But right now I'm reading a couple of books from Ablaze Studios. Ablaze puts out some really cool books. Vampire State Building, Gung Ho are two of the ones that I'm enjoying from Ablaze. There's another one. AWA is another indie publisher, and I've been trying to dig into some of their stuff. I'm trying to think if there's other indies that I'm reading right now. Normally I have a list of some of the stuff that I'm reading. Oh, I'm reading Red Mother from Boom Studios. That is actually really good. There's a lot of Image stuff that I'm also reading, but I don't consider Image to be an independent, so we're not going to talk about those things. Scrolling down through the comments here. All right, I think I reached the end of those comments. So a couple of other things here. So I put up a post earlier, and I was on Instagram, and I was like, I've reached 1 million views. And then I started playing around with this other analytics report that showed I was like 400 shy of 1 million. So maybe by the time that this video ends, I will be at 1 million. But I jumped the shark just a little bit by a couple of hundred views. But we are basically at 1 million views here on YouTube. I think the channel has been up for a little over 2 years. I think I lose track of time. But we recently exceeded 7,000 subscribers here on the YouTube machine. And we now have exceeded basically 1 million views here as well. So a couple of really cool milestones that we are knocking out here. The real goal for the year is 10,000 subscribers. That's the real focus for us. But it's important to take a moment to acknowledge these milestones, right? I said to my wife, babe, I'm about to break 1 million views. She says, cool. So what happens now? And I was like, well, we keep going. But yeah, shout out to Tina for reaching out to me earlier today and making me look at the data and realize that I was actually basically there. And shout out to her. So definitely keeping me honest on some things. One other thing that I'll tell you guys, I sent an email today. I sent an email and I sent a direct message on the Instagram machine to a publisher. And my question to this publisher was, what are your requirements around variant covers? I even long before Tom did his, I think he's like on his 3rd variant cover, I had aspirations of being the first, and Tom beat me. But I had aspirations of having a Regie Collects variant cover actually come out. And I still remain hopeful that we'll do it. But I sent an email to a publisher today, a really cool publisher that I've enjoyed reading their materials. I sent them a message and said, what are your requirements around variant covers? Because I'd like to make that happen. I think that would be a really cool thing for me to do. You know, one of the things that I'm really about is these experiences. You know, I'm really about experiences. Because it's cool to be able to look back and think about all the things that you've accomplished. And so one of the experiences that I want to have is to have a variant cover put out by my channel, because I think it'll be cool. So if something ever happens, you guys keep me, I'll keep you guys in the loop here. So Mario has a question here. Do you recommend any good free apps to keep track of your collection? How do you keep track? So I don't have anything free that I can recommend. I think that CLZ, which is one of the apps that most people out there use, I don't think that that's free. But CLZ is probably one of the most popular apps that is out there. I don't use it, never have, but people swear by it. People absolutely love that app. So you might want to check that out. Once upon a time, I had an Excel file in which I actually kept track of my collection. And it was cool right up until I inadvertently deleted the file. And then after that, I was done with that. Did not have the heart to do that all over again, especially because the collection is basically probably more than tripled. I do use Go Collect. And if you search for Regie Collects collection, I think Regie Collects collection, you should pull up a video in which I talk about how I use Go Collect to track my collection. Now, Go Collect, who sponsors one of the giveaways that we do here on the channel, is a pricing service that is set up only for graded comics. And it's both CBCS and CGC Comics that you can check pricing on. All of the different label covers, colors are all in Go Collect, so you can see what's happening with pricing. They actually have a report. They have the ability where you can basically have a list of all the books in your collection, how much you paid for them, what the current fair market value is, and then it totals it up for you. So you have the ability to look at what your collection is worth. But because it's only for graded comics, it has some limitations, of course. But what's great about it is that you can take photos of the front and the back of the cover. It captures a lot of pertinent information about where you bought it, how much you spent, all of the particulars of it. And it gives you a really nice report. Now, this is really cool, especially if you are trying to get insurance for your collection. Typically, your slab books will be your most valuable books in many cases. And so I actually originally started that because I needed to get insurance and needed to have some way of valuing my collection. And so most of my most expensive books were slabbed at the time. And so that's how I did it. And again, there's a video on the channel here that has all the particulars about how I actually did it, all the features and functionality, all that kind of stuff. If you cannot find it, if you send me a message or if you post up a question on one of the videos, I will probably see it, or you can send me a message on Instagram and I will guide you to that video. Scrolling down through the comments here. Still talking about Green Lantern. Scrolling down through some of the comments, seeing what else you guys are talking about. What is this? Comic Chameleon. The turnaround time for CGC is probably the shortest it would be right now. Hey, that actually might be true. But I'm too scared to take the risk, all things considered. I respect it. You know, at the end of the day, we all have to do what we think is the right thing to do. You know what I'm saying? But you know, CGC has continued to operate despite the fact that others have shut down. And I think a lot of them have actually shut down based upon what the government has basically urged them to do. Local government or state government has urged them to do. But as I just read a short while ago in that statement that was actually released from CGC, they are open, they're operational, and they have been deemed essential by the governor. The governor has basically said, you CGC are essential, therefore you can operate. And what CGC is basically doing is saying anyone that is not essential to the business, like customer service, can actually work from home. But it sounds like they are still open and operating, still processing and grading books and shipping books out. As I mentioned, I think 3 to 4 people actually did some unboxings this week alone where they've received their books from CGC. So, but if you feel that it's risky, I respect it. I definitely respect it. So, scrolling down through the comments here. What is this? I have a app that's free called Comics. You can see what the price is, kind of rip off eBay because it brings you to eBay though. All right. So scrolling down through the comments here. Man, there was a comment here. So do I see a time in the near future where collectors will start dumping their keys to pay for necessities and possibly driving the prices down? It depends. It depends on, you know, so what I will say is that initially, I don't think that prices will start to fall. Right. And I say that because there will be an increase in supply, but I think that there's also a high demand for certain books, right? So as people start to maybe experience some financial difficulties, that will increase the supply. But there's also a lot of pent up demand where there are books that maybe people don't see all that often that will maybe absorb some of that supply. Not everyone is affected negatively by what's happening right now. Some people are still working. Some people are still pulling in checks. And so those folks still have cash and still spend money. And so more supply, that demand will be met. There could become a time in which either more people start to sell, which increases the supply too much to be offset by that demand. Or you could have some people that are on the demand side to start to lose their jobs and or start to get concerned and start to hold their money back. And that supply could just continue to mount. As the supply continues to increase, you will see a decline in prices and you could have a little bit of a downward spiral. So that very well could happen. When that happens, I don't know. I don't know. It depends upon how desperate people become, how long this goes on, how much pent up demand there is out there that will offset that increase. It's tough to say, but will it happen? Potentially. If this thing goes on for a long period of time, you could see a lot of people that have not been working that will use their collections as cash in order to put food on the table and and to pay rent and to pay mortgages, all that kind of stuff. So that very well could happen. So definitely don't want to see that happen, but it is a possibility. It is a possibility. So scrolling down, there we go. TJ broke Go Collect. Okay. I think I could talk about this. TJ broke Go Collect. This dude, he is called the Slab Dragon for a reason. If you guys don't follow TJ on Instagram, I definitely want to encourage you to do that, because this dude has photos of him surrounded by slabs. So he has put so many slabs into the Go Collect database that they're like, hey, we're not really set up for this many books. I think they had to go back and reprogram some stuff and change some settings so as to accommodate TJ's collection of slabbed comics. And I think you're mostly exclusively CGC, right? But I know he operates both in the CGC registry and also in Go Collect. A fantastic collection. I've been the recipient of some of his cast-off comics. I've been the recipient of cast-off books, and I've seen others unbox really fantastic books from TJ. Fantastic member of the comic book community. And I believe Brittany over at CGC has a special place in her heart for you, my friend. So it's always good to see you. Thank you for hanging out just a little bit, my man. Scrolling down to the comments here. Papa Likes Comics says he's excited for the CBCS private signing coming up. It's a pretty big event. If you guys don't know the details on the CBCS signing, you definitely want to check out one of the videos that I released yesterday in which I talked about this signing. I think it was six or seven fantastic creators: Greg Capullo, Frank Miller, Donnie Cates, that are all involved in this private signing that CBCS is actually doing. So go back, watch that video for all of the fantastic details around that. So Regie, how does CGC handle damaged shipments? I don't know. I don't honestly know. I don't know if you've ever seen their packaging. Their packaging is pretty solid. But I don't know how they handle it. I would definitely encourage you guys, if you have questions about that, to send an email to CGC asking them questions around that. Part of the reason why you complete like a declared value for your comics is to basically have insurance, if you will, because there is insurance involved with sending books in the CGC and when books get sent back, which is why you have to sign, because that's part of the requirement around insurance. How they handle if books have been damaged, I don't know. And honestly, I don't know if anyone has ever told me that a book has been damaged en route from CGC to them. I don't think that I've ever heard a story of that. That doesn't mean that it hasn't happened or does not happen. I honestly don't know. Scrolling down through some of the comments here. I sent off 9 books recently and it made me nervous. So those must be really good books, not expensive books, good books. And growth is a challenge, my friend. Hopefully you have comic book insurance. It's one of the things that I actually recommend for people is if you have a nice collection, and a nice collection is one in which it is not easily replaced and it has nothing to necessarily do with high value. You could have a whole lot of $1 books and you might say, you know what, they're all $1, but there's a whole lot of them. I could not replace this collection. You might want to look into Collectibles insurance, and it's actually probably a whole lot cheaper than what you would imagine. At least I was very surprised with how much insurance I wanted and how inexpensive it was. If you search the channel for Regie Collects Insurance, you will actually find a video that I did with the director of Collect Insure. That is the company that I use. And I think they have a partnership with CGC. And when I spoke to other people that have been in the hobby for decades and decades that have really nice books, almost all of them said the exact same company, Collect Insure. So you might want to look into them. And what I will tell you is that your homeowner's insurance may not be sufficient to actually cover you. And so that's why I looked into Collectibles insurance. And again, it was not as expensive as I thought that it was. So scrolling through the comments here. You know, I don't. I've never signed. Well, I take it back. I did. I signed one comic last week. The person that won the Go Collect giveaway actually asked me to sign a book for them, and I did, and I sent it off. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that because I don't have anything to do with the book, you know. So what I would say is if send me a message and we can talk about it. I've never really done it. But send me a message and we can have a conversation about it. The best way is probably on Instagram at Regie Collects, or you can send me an email to Regie@regiecollects.com and we can talk a little bit about it. Scrolling down through the comments here. Scrolling through the comment. I'm actually scrolling up. I do have those photos. I think there's somewhere in this little bin right here. Yeah, I think they're right here. So I will occasionally do. Nope, they're not even in there. Man, I wonder where they went. I will occasionally. Not that I look like this anymore, but back in the day when I was still doing competitive bodybuilding, there was an event. A couple of events that I kind of went to in which you could, people that wanted to get things signed by you, you could sign them. And so you had to come prepared with things. So I had a couple of things that I would sign. This is actually, this one is when I won a pro show. So a lot of people saw the sword that sits behind me. This is the show in which I actually won my broadsword that you see in my various videos in the intro and stuff like that. And this was actually a photo shoot that I did right before Thanksgiving several years ago. I no longer look like that. I'm all dad bod. I've lost a significant amount of muscle because I don't work out anymore. Again, it's all about experiences. And this was an incredible experience for me to actually become an IFBB pro. So at one point, yeah, I had a bunch of signed photos and all that kind of stuff. So well done, Emerald Knight. Well done. Scrolling down to the comments. Rush. My Canadian brother. Yeah, I've never been in GQ, but I have been in magazines literally all around the world. I was a big deal in Australia. I had a lot of articles and a lot of photos that were published out in fitness magazines in Australia. Also, some here in the UK and like Train magazine. I've been on one cover. I've been in the UK in like Muscle and Fitness and various magazines. Kind of cool stuff. Again, these are goals that I set for myself. I take them down and you look back fondly upon those really cool things. So, Garage Con. My man Jerry came out and hung out with me at Garage Con. Oh man. Yeah, man, I'm working on my dad bod. It's a full-time job. It takes a lot of dedication and commitment to really develop a good dad bod, and I'm one of those people, man. I set a goal for myself and I go after with gusto because I have a bias for action. So I work on my dad bod every single day. It's like a mixture of like inactivity, channel surfing, chicken nuggets, and whatever random bits of food my children shove into my mouth. That is like how it actually gets done. Scrolling down. What is this? If I go to a con and go up to CGC table, sign my own comics, yeah, that would be dope. I'm gonna be honest with you. One of my things is I would like to have a label, and it would be great if it were CGC, a label with the name Regie Collects on there. That to me would be dope. Again, it's all about these experiences, and to have a comic in a CGC holder that has my logo on the back and or that has my name on there, to me, that's dope. And I think Comic Tom did it. Comic Tom has done it, and it's impressive. It really is. The way that young man has gone after this industry is truly impressive. And man, you know, if I wish that I had the liberty to do more, right? Because it would be awesome, you know. And I'm not to say that what I have accomplished or what I am doing pales in comparison or isn't good enough, because I'm very proud of that. But when you see someone doing something really cool and living out their dreams, you have to take a moment to acknowledge that success. You know, you have to take a moment to acknowledge that success. So scrolling down through the through the comments. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You guys are hilarious. Oh man. Yeah, so we were just talking about that. We were just talking about that. One of the things that I've done is I sent an email to a publisher inquiring about the requirements, the requirements around getting a variant cover, because I think that would be dope to be able to do it. So fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed that we actually do it. I sent the message on Instagram direct message, and then I wrote a formal email and sent it off as well, hoping that they kind of meet in the middle. Because I had actually started having this conversation. If you guys remember Juan, who was just on the show, he and I had the conversation around a variant cover many months ago. Many months ago, we started talking about it because I was like, it would be dope to do it. So we started crunching numbers and started thinking about it. And there was a book we were going to have Humberto Ramos do for us. And that we found, I found out what the book was and was like, it wasn't a book that I was interested in. And so I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And so we ended up not doing it. And so, you know, I've been keeping my eyes open, as has he, of other books that we might want to do a variant cover for. It's a lot of money. It is a lot of money. I'm gonna be honest with you, a lot of money. And the question becomes, is there enough upside to even offset the amount of money that you would have to spend for Marvel because of their requirements? But then, you know, I'm always kind of thinking, I'm like, well, why not go to a non-Marvel book, right? Why not go after that? And so that was what prompted my email today and my direct message, was to try to explore, because again, it would be cool. And it doesn't have to be Marvel. It doesn't have to be Spider-Man. That would be dope. But sometimes maybe you have to take a couple of stutter steps to be able to get to that bigger goal, you know, and to have proof of concept that it works. The last thing you want to do is to spend a tremendous amount of money and have it not work, right? In the way that I operate, if you guys have watched my videos on how to make the hobby fund itself, I do things and I take those funds and I apply it to the next thing, and I take those funds and I apply it to the next thing, right? So t-shirt sales, fund it. Regie collects box cutters, right? They aren't the best because my lettering has started to peel off. But I started to sell t-shirts. I took the money from the t-shirts and I bought box cutters, and I sold the box cutters, and you know, it just all kind of rolls, man. That way I don't take money away from my family. I have play money, or wham, walking around money, and I just kind of keep rolling it. And that's what makes it cool, man. He was, and that's why because my Juan has a connection with Humberto Ramos, and I love how he does Spider-Man. So he was like, months and months ago, he was like, I have this big project that's coming up. I can't tell you anything about it, but it's 6 months off. I assumed it was going to be him working on a Spider-Man title. So we waited, and then it wasn't. And I was like, I'm not interested, because him on Spider-Man was dope. It was super talented. There you go. DC and Marvel require 3,000 minimum. 3,000 minimum. That's for the book. That does not include the artist. That does not include the cover art. So if you want a really dope artist, you have to pay that artist independently of the book in order to do the cover art, for that cover art to be submitted to DC and Marvel for their approval. So depending upon the artist, they could charge a crazy amount of money to get it. But the cool thing is that you own the original art, but you also have to pay for the original art, right? And so that's part of what makes variant covers really tricky and also really expensive, because if you also get a minimum of 3,000, not all 3,000 of those can be sold, because of what we've always talked about: diamonds, shipping. Books get shipped, books get damaged. You can't sell a damaged book. That just doesn't fly, right? So you have a lot of waste, and you may have hundreds of books that are damaged potentially, right? I'm making this up, that could be damaged, that cannot be sold, but you still have to pay for them. What is this? Reggie, can you do a video about one day your slab says certain keys first appearance, then something happens, and the next day, you know, it's no longer considered a first appearance? I don't know that that's actually happened, to be honest with you. I don't know that that has actually happened. I've seen the opposite happen where a label says one thing and then the next day they something is recognized and then they actually will add that to the label. So the next time a book is submitted, it may say something a little bit different. I don't know that I've ever seen a book go from a first appearance to not being a first appearance. So I don't know that I would be able to do a video on that. I have seen videos out there from Cool and Collected on YouTube. He has done a video in which he had two books that were basically the same books. The label said something very different and it was the exact same book. And part of it was maybe there was a mistake, maybe something changed with CGC. But I don't know that I've seen this. And Brick Hunter, if you have evidence of it, reach out to me and we can definitely have a conversation and kind of dig into it. But I've never seen that happen. I've never seen that happen. Man, Greek Freak, brother, I'm trying. Crimson by Ramos. Umberto Ramos. Scrolling down through the comments, see what else. It depends. It depends. Yeah, they may get credits, but credits just mean that your money is tied up, right? And not only is your money tied up, but you have the loss of income, right? So if you have a book and you have a customer in front of you that wants to buy that book and you don't have that book to sell that customer because it's damaged, yeah, you can get a credit or you can get a replacement. But by the time you get it, that customer's already bought that book elsewhere, right? So your money is still tied up in there, and it's not in cash in your pocket or in the profit that would have been realized by selling that book at that moment to that customer that was in your shop. So scrolling through the comments here, I think you guys are having a couple of conversations around release dates for some good to see you, brother. Have a good one. A couple of conversations around some release dates and stuff like that being delayed. I definitely get that. We talked about this. Some things are actually being released on streaming services. I think they were discussing that or debating that for the Black Widow, whether they were going to do that, and the same thing for DC on Wonder Woman 1985 or 84. I can't remember. So we'll see what happens with that. Los, thank you for stopping by, brother. Thank you for hanging out just a little bit. Black Widow, there you go, was pushed back to November 2020. You know, in so many ways, this year is just gone. In so many ways, this year is just gone. There's no doubt about that one. This one's just gone. And yeah, we're not going to be able to recover in so many different ways. So yeah. Scrolling up through comments. A couple of comments in here about some variants. You guys are having a little bit of discussion amongst yourself. And again, if they're all in caps, it actually helps me to be able to see some of this stuff. Oh man, I wish I'm all dad bod, brother. They don't want to see that on full screen now, man. Back in the day though, scrolling up through comments here. Yeah, I think we already addressed this one, man. Comic Tom is doing it, man. Comic Tom is doing it. My hat's off to him for his hustle. And we've spoken a lot on like the phone at various points over the last year or so. And the guy has a tremendous amount of hustle in him, and he is working. He is doing a lot of just really cool stuff that I applaud him for. Yeah, man, have to recognize the hustle because it is indeed real. All right. So maybe we will go ahead and wrap this thing up. Just crumble it up and throw it away and set it on fire. This year is done. I'm gonna be honest with you. This year's done. So yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal. All right. What is this? Anthony. Hey there, Reggie. Just wanted to say thanks for the great videos. I love being part of the live chats. Also, what's up to all the comic book soldiers? Yeah, Anthony, welcome. I'm glad that you're enjoying the content, man. You know, that's one of the cool things. A lot of people have actually been reaching out to me as of late, basically saying how much they appreciate the content that I've been pushing out, especially in these hard times. And that's why I'm going a little bit long on this live stream, right? Because to some degree or another, trying to fill a little bit of a void. You know what I'm saying? This is much longer than most live streams that I do, just because I know that people, and I wasn't even going to release a video today, right? But I wanted to spend a little extra time on here to give people a little bit of entertainment, something to be a part of and all that kind of stuff. So you are very welcome, Anthony. Thank you very much for the kind words. So what is this? Do you know if I can mine some data from the CGC census Signed books, first CGC label. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's really good data in there, but that database isn't necessarily the easiest to manage, but I think that there is a lot of data in there that you probably could play around with. So, what is this? Regie really digging the go collect spec streams. Keep up. Yeah, man. I'm gonna tell you, it's not good it's not good content on my part. Jerry, it's not good content on my part, brother. I'll tell you that right now. I think that the bloggers, man, I think that the bloggers are doing a really good job of writing some really good content that is interesting. And then I think Andrea, who is my contact at Go Collect, does a really good job of selecting from the blog post a diverse amount of content, which keeps it fun, right? There's things that she selects that I don't necessarily have an interest in and would not have selected. But because it's something that I would not have selected, that's also part of what keeps it interesting for me. And then you have the bloggers who are creating all this really great content, these analyses and these thought-provoking things. And all I do is, look pretty on camera and string together a couple of sentences. But no, and I will say thank you. I will say thank you, Jerry, for a couple of things. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for watching the videos. If you guys don't know what Jerry's actually talking about, I host a weekly video on the Go Collect channel. And it's basically a recap video of various blog posts that have been put out by Go Collect bloggers. And so I basically just cover 5 to 6 blog posts, and I give high notes from them and basically encourage you to read them in their entirety. But it's a fun video. It's a fun video that I do every week. I think we are probably in month 2 or 3, something like that. And I have fun. I have fun with those videos, and I think you guys do as well. So thank you for that. All right. So I'm glad you guys were enjoying this stuff. All right. So we are going to wrap this thing. This guy harasses me in every video, but I enjoy you, bro. I definitely appreciate that. Nothing wrong with being a reporter. I was a communications major. So there you go. I think it's only fitting. So I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me just a little bit, guys and gals, cool cats and kittens. I hope that you guys enjoyed this live stream. And if you did, I definitely want to encourage you to hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment behind. If you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so. You can do it on Instagram at Regie Collects. That's actually my preferred way to reach out to me, because that way I can actually do videos and text and voice notes to respond back to you. Email is a little harder. My email responses tend to be a little shorter just because it takes a lot more to type than to turn my camera on and record, a bunch of videos for you easily, because I'm easily a verbal communicator. But if you guys need to reach out to me, you can do it on Instagram, or you can send me an email to Regie@RegieCollects.com. If you're feeling frisky, you can head over to the website, RegieCollects.com. There's all kinds of cool stuff over there. Check it out. But if you guys need me, I am not too hard to find. Take care.